Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Yeah, so I'd like to take leave or kind of ask permission to give a Dhamma talk to the community, both the monastics and lay people who are here. I kind of like that. Ajahn Siri has been doing that when he starts a Dhamma talk. I think it's really nice. I think it's been for at least a couple of years now. Beth, who's the kind of the caretaker for the women's accommodations, has been asking me if I could make something for the entranceway to Casa Serena, the women's part of the monastery, the house that the guests stay at. And I've always wanted to, but like nothing really was strongly coming to my mind, and it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. And then I think it was last year, a little bit, maybe a little bit longer than that. Hisayo, who's a really talented potter and artist, came up with an idea, and so I was very relieved. I was like, okay, good, I don't have to worry about that anymore. But it didn't. I think it was quite nice what she did, but it was a little bit too flimsy, and the ceramic pieces broke and fell and broke, and so Beth asked me again a couple months ago, could you come up with something for Casa Serena? And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And at the time, I just finished a painting, an icon. They're not really paintings; they're icons, and a very traditional way of painting, like a Christian icon, egg tempera on wooden boards, done in a very traditional way. And it's actually called writing an icon. So, but I had done one of the very first Siladhara that Ajahn Sumedho had ordained in the group of four, Ajahn Rocana. And she had passed away. It's over 30 years now. I think she passed away. And I had seen a photograph of her many years back. The image kind of captivated me. And it's when they were on a Tudong walking pilgrimage, and I didn't know any of the history of it or what it was about, but just the visual image of her standing with a bunch of other women in this field. The monks when we're sitting, and nuns when we're sitting, especially like on a zafu like here, we're sitting on a piece of cloth, so it's a sitting cloth, and I think she's got her sitting cloth kind of wrapped around her head, kind of like almost like a pirate, and she's wearing this looks like a tube. I think it was a PVC pipe kind of around her neck, and then but the way she's holding her hand, she's sort of like supporting it, and it looked just very nurturing, and I was kind of intrigued by the image. So when I was looking at doing various images of writing icons, I always wanted to do some female images as well. I've done a few paintings of white Tara, and it's just kind of thinking of ideas, and that image came to me of the Ajahn Rocana's, the photograph, and so this spring I was over at Amravati for the elders meetings, and I asked several of the Siladharas, the senior Siladharas who actually knew her, if I could have permission to actually do an icon of her. For one thing, I just didn't think was appropriate just to go ahead and do it. So I asked, and they gave their blessings. And the thing that set me off, or not set me off, I decided I definitely wanted to do this as an icon. Was I think at least once I heard the comment when I asked if I could do her as do the image as an icon. The comment back was she wasn't a saint, and so I was like, well, neither am I. So I want to do this as an image then, and so. So the image is this right back here, kind of a 11 by 14 inch image, and then when I'd finished, I kind of initially thought I would send it to Amravati, to Chithurst, and see if the nuns there wanted it. But I don't know. As soon as Beth sort of mentioned or reminded me of the entrance to Casa Serena, just something about me kind of felt like, yeah, this is the right thing to do, or it's kind of calling for there. And then if you can see it from where you're sitting, the shrine back there after later this evening or later, you can take a look at it. And it's there's 3 Buddha images to the left of Ayurveda in the icon, and those were the ceramic pieces that Hisayo made. And so somebody fixed them and glued them back together. And then on the right-hand side, just a little plaque that just sort of, I kind of hand wrote that. It's hopefully that's just temporary, that something will happen and become more permanent, like a plaque or something. But I took it to what's written on there just as from the Sangha newsletter. It was the obituary of Ayurveda. I greatly condensed it, but just wrote a little bit on there. And I think, for me, it's like I don't know that much about Ayurveda, but just except for what's written on this sheet of paper, I'll actually read to you the obituary, and just a few short stories or some things people have told me, and. One thing is, it's like a couple of the nuns said that she wasn't a saint, and when I read what I read in the obituary, it's very very complimentary of her, and there's one point in here where it says that after she had taken on full ordination and was like to kind of help her deal with some energy that she had. Excessive energy, that Lumpur Sumedho sort of gave her a suggestion of doing some translations of the Jataka tales and to translate them into English and make some books out of that. And it's like it was written in a very positive way, but I think the British are very understated and can state things in beautiful ways, but be actually saying something quite different. So it's like she was creating a lot of hassles with all our energy, so we had to give her a task to get her out of our hair. But I might be reading into that, I don't know. But I kind of like the image too. That's like that the idea that here's somebody who she was the foremost, the forerunner of a women's practice order in the West. She was the very first one that Lumpur Sumedho ordained as an Anagarika, and then I think it was like 4 or 5 years later, maybe. Then they decided to do the Siladhara sort of ordination. So it was sort of the first attempt at some sort of like a nun's training rules and ways of practicing in community. I don't think it's been perfect, and there have been some complaints about it, but I always had a lot of respect for Lumpur Sumedho to try something, to make an effort, and a lot of respect for the women who have done the training of put forth the effort and made the opportunity for themselves and for other women to have that opportunity. So I think it's really important that we have some recognition of those nuns and Ayurveda. And she died very it was within, I think, 4 or 5 years of her ordination, and she did pass away. And not, I think it was like 83 is when she became the Siladhara, and I think it was just like 4 years later that she that passed away while on pilgrimage in India. And say, it's a respect for her for being the first one, and bringing it in. It's like bringing, helping the order come to be. We've also benefited here from having, especially Ajahn Sundara has been here many times, and stayed here for a while, and Ajahn Chandasiri's been here on several occasions, and some of the other Siladharas have been here and offered Dhamma. I always, the one that I've been around the most is Ajahn Sundara, and I just always appreciate the way that she has just a slightly different take on Dhamma, or just being in a pretty male dominant community, just to have a feminine voice every once in a while, just see how she sees things differently. And my first time that I was kind of around her was probably in Anagarika, and at tea time, a bunch of us were sitting on the front porch of the house that isn't here now, but we were sitting there, and there were a bunch of potted plants in front of the porch on the ground of these red hot pokers, and there were hummingbirds kept sort of coming in and taking the nectar from the flowers, and the afternoon sun was setting, and just these iridescent colors on the birds, and a bunch of us that were sitting on the porch were just kind of having a lot of joyful, appreciative sort of comments about these butterflies and how beautiful they are and just how amazing it is, and kind of appreciating them. And Ajahn Sundara kind of leaned in and said, "Mother Nature is so cruel. Look how hard she has to work to get her food." And I was just like, wow, it's like, she's really seen clearly. She wasn't saying, "Oh, don't be so foolish," putting us down or anything, but it's like, yeah, that actually was true. That butterfly does have to work really hard for getting its nectar. And so, there's been several occasions where throughout the years I've just really appreciated Ajahn Sundara and her, the wisdom that she's departed to me, or giving me some feedback or suggestions or just some teachings. And so I think the shrine is, because all the first 4 Siladharas, I think they all ordained together, and so this is Ayya is just the first one, and so kind of honoring that. I'll read to you the obituary, and say it's part of it's written on the shrine behind us here, and this was written by Ajahn Chandasiri. It says, Ayya passed away peacefully in New Delhi during her second pilgrimage to the Buddhist holy places. These personal reflections on her life are offered by Ajahn Chandasiri with affection and gratitude. On February 14th, Ayya, together with a small group of monks and lay people, left Amravati to go on pilgrimage in India. This, her second pilgrimage, was dedicated to her twin sister. The first, undertaken 12 years previously, was for her father. Members of the community were naturally shocked and saddened at the news of her death, only 3 weeks later. Although she had spoken often of the possibility that she might die, having made a supreme effort to wind up her affairs, she had cheerfully announced to those accompanying her that it was extremely auspicious to die on pilgrimage. Bhante Dhammawaro, who was staying in New Delhi, attended the cremation. I think Ajahn Joseph Kapil was also part of that as well. Bhante Dhammawaro, had been the first bhikkhu Ayya had met when, in 1973, she attended meditation instructions given by him. This had been a major turning point in her life. Since then, studying first with Venerable Vajrayana and later with Ajahn Sumedho, she never looked back. Early on in her Buddhist studies, she came across a passage in the suttas which described dana, generosity, as the medicine which can cure all the ills arising from desire. Rather hesitantly, she put this to the test and found that it helped to ease the unhappiness that she felt at that time. Ayya realized that this teaching, which had helped her so much, could also be of value to other Westerners. She also saw the great importance of establishing the Sangha in the West, so she began to devote every ounce of energy and integrity to supporting the bhikkhus in any way she could. She lived very frugally in order to buy food for them, and would make a long journey across London in the early morning to offer it in the traditional way into the alms bowl, to the rather astonishment of those passing by on their way to work. In 1978, she took temporary ordination at Oakenholt. Then, in 1979, after visiting the nuns in Thailand to see how they lived, she gave up her flat and her job at the homeopathic hospital, arriving at Chithurst with all that she possessed, ready to begin life as a nun. On the evening of October 28th, she, together with the 3 other candidates, requested the 3 refuges in the 8 precepts. As the elder of the new Anigarikas, she was the first to be given the new name Rocana, meaning radiant. This name couldn't have been more fitting. Her welcoming smile and warm words of encouragement eased the natural timidity that many visitors must have felt at their first contact with the Sangha. Often, too, she would exercise her skills in homeopathy to relieve their bodily ills, listen kindly to their troubles, and offer remedies and guidance. In 1973, she took the 10 precepts, Siladhara ordination. It was not easy for so independent a spirit to live within the confines of the newly formed order of nuns. So that year, Ajahn Sumedho suggested that she begin work to bring the Jataka tales to life. This was a perfect focus for her abundant energy, deep love of children, and vivid imagination, which were coupled with the extensive knowledge of Buddhist scriptures. Now, 2 volumes are complete and in the hands of publishers, a legacy for young Buddhists growing up in Western society. Fellow pilgrims have recounted how Ayya, generously of heart and skill as a storyteller, found expression during her last days. Many were touched by the simple delight with which she distributed gifts to the community of Tibetan nuns while they visited Kathmandu, while in Savatthi, the company were held spellbound by her account of the events which took place there during the Buddha's lifetime. So her death, untimely in a sense, also carries with it a sense of fulfillment. Ayya had seen the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha firmly established in the West. This is what she cared about most, recognizing that it is these 3 gems that can help to remedy the ailments of our Western society. And as I was reading that, I was remembering too that Bhante Dhammawaro, when I first arrived here, was staying at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, was having some health problems, and was staying there, and we used to go over to visit him. So it's interesting having that connection as well. I was, kind of earlier today, I was, contemplating, maybe, reading this and, talking about the shrine, and well, actually, just to back up just a little bit too, I asked Tankachana if we could start the puja today instead of just, doing chanting like we often do, to do the protective chanting, the parita chanting, and to dedicate it to the shrine, and to put thoughts of goodwill and wishes to that and towards the shrine. And very similar to earlier this year, when this hall was sort of first officially being able to be used. We did a couple-day ceremony of welcoming the Buddha image that's here, the sandstone Buddha image, doing chanting and Dhamma talks, and did the same ceremony several times over, just to to mark the occasion that it's this is no longer a construction site, because for 2 years this room itself was sort of staging area or being built, and so it did have that sort of feeling around it that it's a work site, and to really change that perception, change the attitude that no, this is a place of worship, this is a place of practice, and to have a ceremony that sort of marked that occasion. And so I think Beth and I and Debbie probably as well, just didn't want to just sort of nail a couple pieces of wood together and just carry it over and put it in place. We thought it'd be nicer to bring it into this shrine room and set it up, and do some protective chanting and honor it that way. And I asked them, because it's unfortunate that the next 2 weeks we won't be having morning or evening pujas, but we will be having the meal in here and doing the blessing chants before the meal. So, maybe he said, when it's appropriate, we could, when it's fitting, to take it down and to take it over to Casa Serena, which I'll be gone for the next week. So, probably after I get back, we can take it over. But I think it's kind of nice to bring it in here and for people to contemplate it and reflect on it. Actually, Monage earlier today was asking about it at the mealtime, and I think the image itself, I started talking about it originally. It turns out that the photograph that I took it from, it's really blurry. So, and I'd seen a couple of other photographs of her that it was at different angles, and so I wasn't quite sure I was getting. I never met her, so I don't know exactly what she looked like. And then one of the four Siladharas, Tanisara, was here just about a month ago. It was right after I finished it, and I showed it to her, and she said, "Wow, you actually captured her likeness." I was like, so I was happy to hear that. But she actually told me the story behind the photograph, so I thought, oh, that's really nice. And then and so I guess that if you look at it, she's kind of wearing, looks like like a necklace, and it was a PVC pipe. It's probably about a foot long, maybe not quite that long. It was a PVC pipe, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the monk who did the Avalokiteshvar carving in England, Ajahn Vimalo, Ajahn Vimalo. But Ajahn Vimalo, as a layperson, when he was still a layman, carved the Buddha image that's actually on the very top of that this little the PVC pipe on there. So there's a little Buddha image, and he carved that when he was a layman, and then it was hollow on the inside, and they either had like prayers and relics and sort of religious, sacred objects inside the PVC pipe, and then the tudong was the Siladhara actually moving down to Chithurst, and so they'd been at Amravati, and so they took, I think it was 3 weeks or something to walk down, and I think all of the Siladharas took part of it. Maybe some of them may have done the whole thing, but they didn't all walk the whole way, but they took turns, and I think they all took turns carrying the reliquary with them. And she said, and then Tanisra told me the story that if you've ever been to England, they have just really wonderful footpaths that go everywhere, and you can basically walk from one side of the country to the other, and just on these public paths. Ajahn Amaro talks about it in his book, The Long Road North, of being able to do that, like never walking through London, even through London, and still staying on these public paths. That Nick Scott was brilliant at sort of reading them and navigating through them. So they had these paths, and they were supposed to get into this town for the meal offering. People were going to meet them there, and they said they were kind of walking through this field, and they could actually see the common, the greens, and they could actually see the people. So I'm imagining they were probably like quarter mile away, a couple 100 yards away, and they're in the middle of this field, and all of a sudden the footpath just ends. It just stops. There's crops and stuff growing, and it's actually illegal to sort of kind of plow up the footpaths. They're like say national treasures, and rights of way for people to use. If it goes even right through your property, you have to let people use it. And so they were kind of perplexed, like what's going on? And they could literally see where they were going. And I can imagine, some of these fields are quite large. So if they were going to stay on the path, they had to backtrack all the way back to the end of the field and find a way around, and probably maybe even miss the meal. So they thought, well, it's just a couple 100 yards. It's not a big deal. Let's just go. And then just as they got to like the road, there was a cottage there, and it had a really low fence, and so they decided they'd just sort of jump over the fence and just not going to harm anything. And so they jumped over the fence, and then all of a sudden these like military style people came out with like machine guns and arrested them, and they're like, what's going on? And they interrogated them, and they were really intrigued by this the reliquary, this little plastic thing that they were carrying. And I started thinking about it later. It's like, well, this is probably the 1980s, in being in England, the war in Northern Ireland was happening. Maybe a pipe bomb or something like that, and it still was kind of weird. And they told them, well, then they let them go, and so they had their meal. And then when they started walking out of the town, they all, I think it was just the four of them, the four Siladharas, and they each got arrested and put into a paddy wagon and taken off independently and interrogated. And they told them that they were being interrogated for an arson that had happened in the area, which didn't make any sense to them, but that was what they were told, and they were let go. And it wasn't until, I think, many years later, I think Ajahn Chandasiri figured it out. The piece of property that they had walked over the fence was Margaret Thatcher's house, the Prime Minister of England. And so then so these nuns sort of walking over carrying a pipe bomb around their neck, it's like, didn't know what was going on, didn't believe them. And so I was just totally amazed that I actually captured that whole bit of history, in this little icon here. These stories, these hopefully this thing. My intention is to honor Ayurveda, and hopefully more of these stories will come out. People will tell more stories or these things. And I was showing Lumpur, like on the shrine itself, like I have an idea still to put a little bit of a shelf just above the icon, and maybe a beautiful Buddha image will show up or something that will be on top of that. And I also think it needs some flowers or something, because like Ayurveda was into homeopath, and so it's like to honor that. So this is just the beginning. It's like I hope that it does have a life of its own. I was thinking I was going to say more, but I think it's actually enough. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Sadhu, 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 anumodami. Do you want to do a closing chant? Yeah. So this is our normal all-night vigil, but it's been so hot, 112 degrees this past weekend, every day. And they say Lumpur's, he's down in Berkeley, and there's a group of us that are leaving tomorrow to go on a trip. And so Lumpur gave us blessings for us to just kind of go ahead and call tonight. I mean, this hall's open actually every night if anybody ever wants to practice. So if people want to stay, you're welcome to, but there won't be any formal all-night sit. So, but we thought maybe we'd close with the chant and bow to the shrine, and then
try True and False Refuges, Book 1, page 69.
I think it's different. 61?
69. Andamayang kema akema saranagamana paridipaka gatayo banamase
Bahumve saranam yanti Bhavatani vanani cha Aravaruka chetayani Manusabhayatajita. Too many refuges they grow, to mountain slopes and forest glades, to parkland shrines and sacred sites, people overcome by fear. Netam ko saranam kemam, netam saranam uttamam, netam saranam agama, sabbadukkha pamuchyati. Such a refuge is not secure, such a refuge is not supreme, such a refuge does not bring complete release from suffering. Yo cha buddham cha dhammam cha sangham cha saranam gato, Jatari ariya satchani sammapanyaya pasati. Whoever goes to refuge in the triple gem sees with right discernment the Four Noble Truths. Dukkham dukkha samuppadam dukkha sacchadikamam ariyan chattangikam mangam dukkhupa samagaminam. Suffering and its origin, and that which lies beyond, the Noble Eightfold Path that leads the way to suffering's end. Etam ko saranam kemam, etam saranam uttamam, etam saranam magamma, sabbadukkha pamuchyati. Such a refuge is secure, such a refuge is supreme, such a refuge truly brings complete release from all suffering.
Closing homage, page 28. Araham
Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivade.
Swakato
Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami.
Supatipano
Bhagavato